Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 36 of Are We There Yet? Unfaithful. I'm your host, Susan Ruth.
And I'm your host, Mara Adelman. And today we are three humans who are going to have the discussions and raise the questions about all those questions we have about where is there when it comes to dating, relationships, and sex. And today we have with us Eric Kellum, who is going to discuss his journey through infidelity.
Hi, Eric.
Hey, ladies. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I just hit the mute button. There's buses today. It's making me crazy. There's buses every day on my street. You and I met Eric through Shay, and you were on Hey Human podcast many, many years ago. And so when Mara and I talked about who would be a good guest to bring on for this topic, I said, ooh, let's get Eric to come and speak again. And I'm sure your story has morphed and changed even more than when you and I first discussed your story. So feel free to dive right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how your journey transpired.
Well, what's really cool is since we last talked, COVID happened. The what I call the Thanos snap that took place for all of us in real time. And I picked up my pen. I used to be a spoken word artist way back in the day. And then I stopped because I thought I was too old. And then COVID happened, and then I started writing again. And I use it a lot to serve as an icebreaker to break people into a story. Because when I talk about infidelity or intimacy or sex or relationships, as raw as I talk about them, sometimes it's tough and sometimes the heart helps. So I guess I can lead you in, if you don't mind, with this piece that kind of sets the tone of where I was 15 years ago. It's called Find My Phone. You guys are Apple or Android users?
Apple.
So there's a play on word with that. You'll catch it. Here we go. I'll never forget that date, January 8, 2008. The time was about 5:38 and I was late. My 7-year-old son needed to be at practice by 6, so I threw on my kicks, rounded up the kids, got them all in the van, give my wife a break. That was the plan. Pulling out the driveway, leaving my home, leaving my wife all alone. Hold up, wait, I forgot my phone. Hold up, wait, I have to go back. Dad, let's go. We're going to be late. My son did react. And even though it's summer and I'm late, at that instant, I'm frozen in time as I deliberate. No, earnestly, it feels more like an eternity as I contemplate which door do I choose. See, if my son is late, then he runs laps due to my actions. But if his mother finds my phone, then my family is at risk of being fractured due to my infractions. And while one course of action appears more severe, with the nagging harassing of my son near my ear at that moment, an overwhelming state of emotion feels quite clear. I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of being here. I'm tired of the lying. I'm tired of the hiding. I'm tired of the image I see when I look at me. I'm tired of changing the screen on my phone. When my wife walks by, I'm tired of trying to remember what lie I said to cover up the last lie. I'm tired of going through the motions. I'm tired of the pent up anger. I'm tired of the sporadic outbursts, which are only getting worse. I'm tired of playing house with an absolute stranger. And at that moment, this discovery of depletion made a usual 10-second jog into my home from my driveway seem so far away. And with my son's nagging, harassing, I made the decision to just drive away and only pray that my wife doesn't find my phone so I could live another day. Yet in the back of my mind, I'm pondering if she does find my phone, if she finds my phone, can she get past the last text I sent to Tracy or that thick pic that was just sent to me from Stacy when she's glancing in on the dirt that I've been dancing in like Swayze? I know this will sound crazy, but if she finds my phone, maybe my wife can finally trace me. Then I no longer have to hide away. I'll never forget the date, January 8, 2008, the time about 8:08. And it was fate. It was a time and date when my wife did find my phone. Hey, dear, how are you today?
Wow.
That gave me goosebumps.
Something almost crying. That is so amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, she does. She's done a intro piece to that, and then I do that piece, and then she does a piece when she actually finds the phone. Yeah.
Is there a video of that somewhere? Because I deal with a lot of clients dealing with infidelity, and I would love your skit to give to people. That's amazing.
We are slackers. We're getting to a point where we're trying to invest more in that. We counsel couples now based on the hell that we've been through. So, but we are both very artistic. So we are trying to find the time and space to kind of create that for sure.
It's good to know you counsel couples, because if I get them started with my 3 sessions and then that's their biggest issue, I can send them to a couple who's been through it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, take us back to, I always talk when the motorcycle, it's like me and the motorcycles are on a thing. Take us back to when this began, when you took those first steps toward infidelity and what was going through your mind at the time.
So, the ongoing everlasting debate in my household is the definition of infidelity. And for me to even stumble into that date, January 8, 2008, in my mind, I would have never thought that I was cheating. I had not done anything physically to cross the line. So in my mind, in comparison to other people that I knew that physically did something, I was good, but I was on the edge, on the verge of probably, it wasn't going to be soon after that something physical was going to pop off. It was just a matter of time. My wife wanted to make sure, and my wife's a very private person by nature. She doesn't really like folks in her business, but she's given me the license and the liberty to talk about this because she had to honestly educate me on infidelity. And I would define it as, anything that you're supposed to be sacred and intimate and exclusive for your spouse that you decide to share with yourself. It could be your body, it could be your heart, it could be your thoughts, it could be a secret that you have that that person that's supposed to be the one that you're in a relationship with, that you're withholding from that person. And I had many emotional encounters, and then some sex pics and some, inappropriate stuff with sending pics here and stuff like that. But again, I'm telling myself I'm good because I haven't done anything physically. And so I left out, as the poem speaks to, and I took my son to school. And when I realized I didn't have my phone, there was a part of me that just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. If she finds it, she finds it. And boy, did she find it. And, she tried to maintain her composure with my first 2 or 3 steps into the house, but she couldn't. And that part is a blur. I just remember her a lot of screaming and yelling and crying, and little kids, they're all older now, wondering what's going on. And then I remember her leaving to go stay with her mom, and I was in my house by myself. And probably one of the greatest nightmares that I had, that my family would be taken from me just like that had happened. And I could go on and on with the story, but I don't want to keep talking because you might want to guide me in a particular.
Oh no, this is amazing. I'm like tearing up over here. It's so, to see how it really went down and your emotions is exactly what I would love to hear personally.
So I do what most brothers do from January 8th, probably till about February 9th. I deny. I hold back as much information as I can. I just play it cool. I let things cool out. But I think there's something about women and the way that you're designed that you guys have an Inspector Gadget spirit. So she's looking at phone bills.
That's the best name for that I've ever heard. So our God is our Inspector Gadget. Say it again.
An Inspector Gadget spirit. Like there's
God, we do. That's awesome.
And so she's checking phone bills and internet, and she's checking, and she keeps finding incidences. And it's really, in the grand scheme of things, it's great that she's finding out this stuff, because one of the things she realized is that I had a pattern that whenever I'm a crazy person, I talk about stuff that a lot of people don't talk about. I do things or try to blaze trails that a lot of people don't go. And I do that, but even though when I do those things, I get scared. And so she noticed, like, whenever you were on one of your endeavors or your initiatives or campaigns, that's when the behavior would pick up. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. But anyway, I'm still denying, and she's finding out stuff, and she's finding out an occurrence here, an interaction there, this happening here. Mind you, none of it's physical. And I'll get to the reason why I make that point. I don't make that point to make a distinction. Like, people that have physically cheated, I don't see myself in a place where, well, at least I didn't do that, because in my mind, I personally feel emotional infidelity is just as bad, if not worse, than physical. You can have sex with anybody and be like, next, or get out, or you didn't mean anything to me. But when you start sharing your soul with somebody, you know what I'm saying? It's a totally different dynamic. So I'm not making that point for that reason, but I am making that point to bring it around to something else. February 9th. These dates are ingrained in my brain like my kids' birthdays, like my social security number. They'll never leave. February 9th, she comes back around and she's calm. And if you ever see a woman that's calm, but you know she has a right to be angry, you need to make sure you have a bodyguard. So she comes and she says, I keep trying to get past this, but I keep finding stuff that won't let me get past it. And she said, I don't know what to do. She said, I just know if I find one more thing, I'm gone. And this is it. And we're done. I'm trying to make it work. Even with everything I found, I'm trying to make it work, but I can't do this anymore. And I was like, gosh, this is not what they tell you in the player handbook. Like, you're supposed to not say anything and she'll get over it and you'll be fine. And this isn't working and she's not cooperating. So I'm like, I go to two people for counsel, two people that I look up to. And one of them says, play it cool. Don't tell her everything. If you tell her everything, you'll lose her. And then the other person said, don't you want to be free? Like, you don't have to worry about anything else coming out. Like, don't you feel like you owe that to her? And if you do make it past this, it will be because she chooses to know everything. And she'll still say, I'm going to work through this hell with you. And so I went back to her. I said, okay, I'll tell you, but I'm a punk. So I'm not going to tell you. I'm just going to write. And she said, the way she tells it, I'm probably downstairs in the basement for like hours. And I come back with 10 pages. Man, I probably told her stuff I didn't need to tell her. But I just share.
All out.
No, get it off my chest. And at that point, we were, she was very private. Like I said before, like we were trying to work this out on our own. But at that point, she said, you need to call our pastor at the time, was still our pastor. And he said, we need counseling now. And so we went through the process of counseling. And, it was one thing I remember him telling me, and people that deal with infidelity, they don't understand this. It is not impossible to overcome infidelity, but it's the hardest thing you ever have to do. And you have to want to work through the pain and the discomfort and everything that comes with it to get to the other side. He said, some days you're going to have bad days and some days you're going to have worse days. And then there are going to be days when it's going to be okay days. And when you have okay days, you're going to thank God they're not the worst days. And I'm like, how encouraging is that? Like, can I get a word or a prayer or a prophecy or something? And he's just like, thanks. And he said it's going to take time. And I hate that phrase, is going to take time. It feels like forever. And my thought at that particular time was like, okay, you know what? What is this? It's about April, May. We'll get through this, through the spring, summer. We'll renew our vows for our anniversary. We'll be good. Our anniversary is in August. And she said, I don't consider that to be our anniversary anymore. It's our marriage died. And I'm like, oh. And so long story short, it took probably a couple of years for us to get to a point where we were functioning as a couple. But we still weren't healed. And I was doing some personal work. Now, going back to what I said before, the reason why when I say that I emotionally cheated and it wasn't physical, and mind you, I would hook up with sisters. There was some sister, like, her son was in the same class as my son, and I went to her house, and there was some girl I met through playing spades online, and I met her in the Target parking lot. Like, there was different sisters I met in person, but with God as my witness, I never had sex with any of them. And she didn't believe me. Obviously, I don't blame her for that. But even my pastor, he would come back to me when I wasn't talking to her. He was like, "You never had sex with any of these people?" And I'm like, "Well, God is my witness. I never had sex with them. I mean, I was horny and I thought about it, but I figured if I crossed that line, I don't know if I'd be able to come back." But what I realized in this journey is I was never looking for sex. And this is the thing that I don't think that people understand about infidelity, is that many times it's a cry, and it's not to make an excuse for the victimizer, because the actions are absolutely, there's no justification for it, but it's a suppressed cry. When I was looking to connect with these sisters, I was really looking to get acceptance and nourishment, because my mom, who left me when I was 5 years old at a bus station, and I never met my biological father. And when I grow up, they don't take a 5-year-old kid and put him in counseling. You just figure it out. So I'm dealing with how to cope with that. And the only way I know how to cope with that in middle school and high school is be a member of the PBS. That's the pretty boy squad. You're not allowed, only the best. So I womanize, I talk women, and they yay. And then I marry a woman where my words don't matter and then when I need words of affirmation from her, I don't receive it because of the way that she was raised, that her dad called her the scum of the earth is a term of endearment. So we missed each other. And so I was never looking for sex. I was looking for some type of escape. And my wife and I at that particular time were too immature and didn't know how to be that escape for each other. So
when I tell clients, it's a symptom, it's not the disease. The
mhm.
disease is the fact that your love languages weren't lining up, that you weren't communicating or being intimate enough, so that every time you had that fear thing going on about your new project, you couldn't feel that you had that in her, right? Do I have that correct? Yeah. It's crazy. Like, it's just a symptom. It's not actually the disease. You got to fix the disease, and then that would have never probably happened. Yeah.
And I think that's our challenge, is that we are so adamant of looking at the root. I mean, the fruit of a tree.
Yeah.
We don't do the investigative work to look at the root.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when we don't see the root and we automatically judge people because of the fruit, that's why a lot of people can't bounce back, because they can't be mature enough to see beyond. Like the greatest gift my wife gave me was forgiving me. And it wasn't something she wanted to do. I mean, let me tell you, those first couple of years, we would have okay days, and then an isolated thunderstorm would come out of nowhere, and she'd have a trigger, and I'd be like, "Wait, no, we were just having an okay day. No, don't let it be storming." And she remembers something, and I'm leaving. I'm divorcing you as soon as I get, because mind you, this also happened to happen while she was pregnant with our fourth child. So as soon as I get on my feet, I get myself together, I'm done. I'm out of here. And this is like a nightmare. And it's in the middle of recession. Man, it was horrible.
It was 2008. Oh,
yeah.
Wow. You couldn't have asked for a worse storm.
Yes.
Question, was some of that hustling and doing those things that were scaring you also, like, I need to make this money in recession?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That drive to, like, be the protector and the provider.
Yeah. Gosh, it was the perfect storm on all. But let me tell you, and then I'm gonna stop running my mouth. But I'll bring this part of it to a close. Where we truly found healing was probably about 3 years in. And again, where most couples that try to get past infidelity for whatever reason, they get to a level where they can tolerate each other, but they don't get to a level of being intimate with each other again. I'm not talking sexually. I'm saying I trust you. I feel like I can be me with you. I feel like my soul can breathe with you. It's another layer. We were in a place where we were tolerating each other and trying to function. But she would, and I felt like I was doing some internal growth. I was looking at what was going on with me to get me to this place. And I got irritated because she kept asking questions. I'm like, why you keep asking? Why can't we move on? Like, that's what guys will say. Can't we just get past this point? Like, why are we still dwelling here? And y'all, my Susan is so wise. And she said, you don't understand. She said, the moment I found out that you cheated, it's as if you injected me with this poison. I can't get it out of my system. And I want to get it out of my system, but I can't. And every time we drive somewhere, I remember you mentioning something with such and such. And I think about that, or I think about this and all this other stuff. And here's the crazy part is you injected me with the poison, but you're the only one that can help me get it out of my system. So we had a routine that I would not advise to anybody. If you can afford a therapist, go to a therapist. We couldn't afford a therapist in a recession. This was our routine. We'd put the kids to bed. She'd start to ask me these uncomfortable questions. I made a decision. Nothing else is working. So I'll be absolutely honest. And I answered the question. And then I would get her unadulterated, raw response. And there'd be screaming and yelling. And it's ugly. But which I'm like, okay, you're saying this is how to get it out your system. And the next day we do the same routine and she'd ask the questions and the same reaction. But over the course of time, she'd ask a question and I'd answer. And her response wasn't as high and intense. And at some point we started to hear each other, understand each other, accept each other. One of the reasons I didn't want to answer those questions, and a lot of men who are or women who have committed adultery don't want to answer the questions because they don't want to face that monster that they was over and over and over again. But you have to be intimate with the monster.
You mean
the
internal monster or the monster that comes out in your person?
What'd you say? Oh, well, both. But
Oh.
honestly, I was more disturbed by the monster that I was that did the deeds and the acts. I didn't want to be that guy again. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I hated myself for that.
I know, but I at least when it's the hetero
Normative.
Thank you. My brain shut off. Women's imaginations are much worse 99% of the time than what you're going to tell them. So until you just say it all, it's show me a picture. Tell me. Then you did it. You did it.
Paranoia can be your enemy if you don't tell the truth. It will blow something to a whole nother level if you don't demonstrate that level of honesty. And yeah, so getting to that point, it really, I think it gave the epitome, it defined the epitome of what intimacy would look like. Because when I'm counseling couples, I tell them intimacy was, I could see you naked, not just physically, but the rawest feelings and thoughts that you have, even if they may be unattractive or flawed to other people, and I still accept you. And when we got to that point, man, we built from there. And she's my best friend. We work together. Best of lovers. And yeah, that's a long multi-decade process that I've just summed up in about 10 minutes.
It's an interesting thing to note too, that I think for most humans, right, it's so easy, and you spoke to it, it's so easy for the sexual part. It's, tab A, slot B, whatever it is. That stuff's easy. The hard part is the naked vulnerability of the soul.
Yeah.
And our reality is that we generally don't start from that space. We start from the physical space, right? Because it's an immediate needs met, and it's not as terrifying as all the other stuff. And so it is really fascinating that I'm glad that you got to that space. We could all learn a lesson from that as far as, oh, maybe we start from that space. Maybe we'd all be better off.
Yeah, it's easier said than done.
Totally.
I especially as, I've found with many of us as men, it is very difficult for us to share from our soul. We've been trained in society to be heroes and supermen and not bear those type of vulnerable emotions and give that level or that, take off the layers.
Sure.
And in doing so, you're self-sabotaging yourself.
There's also the fact that a lot of, in my experience, men have, if they don't want to become friends, if they don't see their goal of the physical being met immediacy wise, they move on to somebody who will meet that expectation. And that's a shame too, because then you don't really get that groundwork up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Question, Eric, you said something about when you guys came back together, it was a year or two in, where you felt like you were getting along well enough, but that your souls weren't talking to each other. Do you feel like your souls were talking to each other before it happened?
Oh, absolutely not. So this is what I tell her, and I think 15 years later, she could probably accept it and understand it. So my whole deal was, like, when the infidelity took place, she just questioned that I never loved her. And it was never a case that I didn't love her. I loved her to the capacity that I was trained how to love. And I loved myself more than I loved anybody else. So to the degree that our souls could connect with me dealing with that level of selfishness, it was, but we were just scratching the surface. And I probably wanted to, it was a nightmare. I wouldn't wish what I went through on to anybody, not even my worst enemy. But what I appreciate is the journey of what I studied. I became a student of what marriage is. I'm a pastor, so I look at I believe God created marriage. I look at why he created marriage. I had to study why God created sex. I had to study what intimacy looks like. I had to learn how to study my wife, which I didn't do before. Matter of fact, all right, so check, pacify me. Here's another piece. And it was really interesting to set it up. We're healing from, we're in that tolerating phase, accepting each other phase. We're still having sex. And, she asked me one night while we're about to make love, like we're going through the motions, clothes is coming off, we're about to go through the process. And she just stops me. She says, "Do you see me?" And my initial response is, "Girl, you booty butt naked. Yeah, I see you. Let's go." But I know that's not what she was asking. She wasn't saying, I'm sorry, Susan. It's weird saying another Susan. It's not Susan. She wasn't asking if I saw her physically. She was asking I'm just imagining, do you see me, or do you see images that you used to see on porn? Do you see me and that I'm trying to make an effort to make this work, even though, do you see that I'm afraid of you, but I'm still trying to love you? And so I wrote this piece. I actually wrote this piece probably about a year ago, but it's something that 15 years ago, Eric would have said in response to her. So here it goes. It's called The Sixth Sense. It's a play off a word from the movie The Sixth Sense. I might make you feel uneasy as I'm sharing this. But I think sex thoughts every second. I got a sixth sense. See, I see clothed women naked, and I hate it. I love it, but I hate it, and I'm broken, and I'm also broke. So I might make you feel uneasy as I'm sharing this. But I chose these words. I spoke to you like you're my therapist, and with my barren chest exposed, I know bros will question, what's wrong with undressing women with your mind? Envisioning the drawers, the G-string, the invisible panty line. I've got that upside down triangular crotch watch. Wow, or how about the profound body shape of the round booty and tights now? That's a masterpiece for my sight as I'm accurately assessing a sister's breast size. What are you, a 32? No, 34C. Oh, well, damn, you not wearing a bra at all. Make no mistake, kid. I see clothed women naked, but I don't see her. I don't see her. I don't see her eyes because I'm consumed by their thighs, and I don't see her soul because I'm polarized by the Panasonic picture of perfectly placing my pole into their holes. And I don't let her see my soul. No, because it's just with one look, I know that she know that I have this sick sense. See, there is just the truth I need to confess. It's like bad congestion I need to get it off my chest. But in my quest for liberation, I've realized this realization. See, society molested me, vacuumed me of virtue till there was nothing left in me. And to my victims, I know I hurt you. I never meant to pervert you. You were no more than a temporary squirt. I was obsessed to get under your skirt. I became possessed when I came exposed, innocence robbed at 11, watching women giving brothers blowjobs. So I automatically saw it as your job to slob. But then I met her. She made porn in HD look like a blur. She made me want to live righteous. She motivated me to bear arms and fight this sick since she enticed me to love her and be a lover of her thinking and not just a lover of her thickness. And I was sure to be cured with the quickness, cured by her love, but her love was never a cure. It only confirmed the curse that I was molested by society. All the booties, the titties, the thighs, oh my, they curse me. Have mercy, Most High. It's an amazing disgrace. Rewind. I once could see fine, but now I see that I see blind. I see a silhouette of my soulmate standing right in front of me, but I can't seem to see her soul because of this sick sense. It's a sickness. I don't know if I'll ever find a cure. And I wrote that piece.
Wow.
I realized that when people have a void of true intimacy, out of survival, we reach for sexual expression to be a drug that we depend on because we don't know how to be truly intimate. And so I had addictions that I had brought into our marriage and habits that I had brought into my marriage as a survival mechanism for me, and not realizing that it was infecting and sabotaging our intimacy. So it took a while for me to see her soul. Don't judge me. There was a time when we first got married, she was recovering from pneumonia. And sexually, I would say, girl, you just had to just lie there. I'll be good.
Ooh.
Had to mature to is those times when we were in that tolerating phase. I could tell that she wasn't present, but she still wanted to be a wife, to give her wifely duty, so to speak. And I would stop at those times and say, you know what? I could tell that you're not here, so we don't have to do anything right now. And my body would be like Scooby-Doo, huh? But my soul was like, dude, I'm learning. I'm getting it. I'm starting to understand. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
That was so profound. I'm blown away. You keep this, the soul piece. Is it Esther Perel? Susan, we've talked about this before. Intimacy is into me you see. Mm-hmm. So you were lacking that, but as soon as you found that, you were able to change the whole picture.
It was a game changer. It was a game changer. I feel really bad because I think that we as a society struggle from intimacy deficiencies all around us. We see it in relationships with parent and children. Family connections or groups where you start out with the family. If there's dysfunction, that indirectly impacts how you're going to relate with someone that you're going to one day hope to share a life with. I have a 22-year-old son. Every day he leaves out the house, or when he comes back in, he comes immediately and gives his mom a kiss, and then he comes and gives me a kiss. And he does that because I was intentional. My dad, I didn't have a biological father. I had a foster father, but and he was great. He did a great job, but he didn't know his biological father, and they didn't talk about intimacy. I didn't have an example to do it, but I wanted to give my son permission to operate in intimate ways, so that he could then have a family, and then, you know what I'm saying, kind of start something new.
It passes
so
in the beginning.
That simple gesture is a blessing to me because I know it goes a long way. I really do.
I was going to ask about that specifically, actually, because you referenced in that extraordinarily beautiful poem that when you were 11 years old, watching blowjobs basically, and having that start to imprint on your mind, and knowing that you're a father of 4 of sons and daughters.
Five.
Oh, it's 5. Sorry. Knowing that you're a father of 5 of sons and daughters, and how you have an understanding now of how important role modeling is and mirroring is, and seeing the intimacy between yourself and your wife, who has the best name ever. But that how important that is as a parent to be able to then say, okay, I can reparent myself by parenting these young people.
That's good.
And also they can learn by example, because the eldest children in your family probably have memories of mom and dad going through some hell.
Well,
you all that?
Yeah, not only that, I made a decision. My kids now, my youngest is 12. I have 4 girls. My son is the oldest. He's 22. The girls are stair steps. 12, she'll be 13 in September. Then I have 15, 17, and 19. I made a decision when my son, I sat down with each one of my kids. Because intimacy, I think we love the concept of intimacy, this connection. We love the concept of intimacy is that person knows me. That we love, I belong to that person. We don't love the part of intimacy where it's ugly and it's uncomfortable and it hurts. Like when my wife and I did that episode that I was telling you about of getting back, that was intimacy. It was painful, but we had to go through that process. So I don't want to just show them. I think one of our challenges as parents, we try to protect our kids, but we only show them one side of it. So I made a decision at a certain age. I sit down with each one of my kids. I think my son just happened to be 16 when I started it. But then when my girls were coming of age, I said 14, I sit down with each one of them and I share what I did.
Oh, ouch.
It is like confessing to my Susan all over again.
Oh.
And the looks in their eyes is like, you went from being my hero to I don't believe you. And it's hurtful. It's terrible. But I want to give them a well-balanced reality of what they have to prepare for, But I mean, that's coupled with other stuff. Like I date my daughters every other month, like each one of them, to spend time with them. So, but it's important for me to have transparent and honest conversations with them. Because I know that, I can't protect them. I can't protect them from whatever guys come their way. But if I can get prepared as possible, that's my goal.
When you made the decision to write your book, which feel free to show it. When you made the decision to write your book, was that a tricky, hold it slowly actually so people can see it. Yeah, perfect.
The gorgeous cover. Gorgeous.
So and that
along the way.
In that decision to make the book happen, that's talk about exposing everything. That process must have been pretty intense.
So true story. My wife and I were having incredible sex. And I say that because there were times during our relationship that I felt like we were just going through the motions, like we were just robots, like we were just doing the act. We didn't feel like we were quote unquote compatible, which I hate that phrase, but that's another conversation for another day. During this discovery of intimacy and discovery of some other things, because I'm gonna tell you, when a woman is scorned, oh man, she'll be honest. So she let me know that it wasn't all that in the first place, right? And so, all right, well, let me be a student of that. So we're
Susan's picking up over there.
We're having great sex consistently, and I said, this is great. I said, I need to write a book about this. And she said, no, you don't. I said, no. I said, I'm not going to tell your business. I'm going to tell, because I'm just going to talk about what I learned and how I was miseducated by society and how they, I said, it's not your business, it's my business. She said, well, your business is my business. She said, I don't feel comfortable with you writing that book. I said, okay. I'm not going to write the book. And so I don't, because I want to continue to have sex with my wife. And as we're counseling couples, she's seeing a similar pattern with different people that we're counseling. And like just different people that have this challenge with intimacy and being vulnerable and connecting and relating, and how that's bleeding into this physical communication. So she comes back to me. She says, "You have to write the book." So she gives me her blessing. And not only that, someone had asked a question, someone else that was reading before I got to Susan, edited by Susan, by the way. Someone got to me and said, "What did your wife say something in the book?" And so I went back and I said, "Well, would you be willing to do the foreword?" And she said, "Yeah." So she does the foreword for the book. But yeah, I just was motivated to write the book because my wife and I have amazing sex.
That's awesome. We would love it someday. I'm speaking for myself, but I think it would be cool if you guys, if she was ever willing to do this kind of stuff, come on together someday and talk about like the healing process, like what got you, both of you. That would be very cool.
Yeah.
She may be open. As I said, we're used to having these conversations in counseling rooms. She says I'm the one that openly talks about sex. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But she also understands that there's a lot of hurt in this area. So she might be open to it. I'll talk to her for sure.
It's about putting it out to the masses, right? Yeah. Eventually, more people that can hear, and your spoken word is so I feel like it'll speak to a lot of men who are having a hard time with their own emotions, with their own intimacy, with their own ability to share something that's happened. It feels like because it's put in that format that it might speak to them better. You know?
Yeah.
Versus us women just going, tell us, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have an extraordinary charisma as well. I think a natural born charisma that I think in a weird way, I mean, there's the saying God works in mysterious ways, but I think that probably opens up a lot of people to say, oh, wait, this person is flawed and is so charismatic and open about it. And that's going to allow me to be flawed and come to you and say, hey, or come to their person or whatever. I mean, I know you're a pastor, so imagine that there are people in your flock that, you know, feel that reflection. And in that reflection, they feel a grace to be able to come forward and say, help me. And I think that the combo, as you said, when you're in high school, you're like, I got it going on, everybody. that obviously helps, but it's, you know, I haven't seen you in a few years. It's so great to know that you are bringing this to others and helping people heal. It's really lovely work, you know?
Yeah, I just came from a conference in Alabama and I was very reluctant. I honestly, if I could tell you the truth, I was when I wrote the book, you know, you do something, you're a creative. I know you get this, Susan. Sometimes you put your stuff out there, but you don't know how it's going to be received. I knew the book needed to be written, and this other book that I'm coming out with, I'm really excited about it now. But at that time, I was just in a very insecure place because one of the peeves that I have with the church in general, not my church specifically, but church in general, is that sex is such a taboo topic, and we don't get to the nitty gritty and just the raw of what people are really struggling with. And that hurts me. And so I wanted to give something that was transparent and that was something that could connect. And let me tell you something, man, this conference I had grown men in my arms crying. And when I said I wasn't looking for sex, when I said I was trying to cover up that 5-year-old boy that was never healed, man, there was this brother who said, when I was 6 years old, my dad murdered my mom. And I never faced that. And I've been using certain things like sex and other things to mask this pain that I have. And I was like, wow, how bad are so many of us really hurting But where do we go to tell somebody this type of hurt, right? Who do we talk to? So yeah, I've embraced it now. I don't really care what people think about me when I talk about it. I feel like it is a weird assignment that I have taken on, you know?
You're calling.
Yeah.
And you're handling it beautifully, if I may say.
More than beautifully. I think that was part of the calling when Susan and I met. I was like, there's so much information that people the goal is to just normalize all of it. Normalize it, normalize it for people so that people go, okay, I'm not alone. A lot of people feel this way, right?
Yeah. Watching your episode, you had a namesake. The
other Mara Adelman.
Yes, man, that talk was so good.
She's good.
And what talking about the communication, and you know what I'm saying? Yeah, to normalize something that is natural, that is a part of God's creation. It's just, when we get to that point, then we get to a place of freedom. Our souls can breathe, and that's yeah. So yeah, I love what you guys are doing.
What's your next book going to be about?
It's called The Sexual Revolution, and it is from a biblical standpoint. We in our profession of faith, for one, we just profess abstinence, but we don't say why. And there is so many revelations I've learned about our bodies. When God says it's literally the temple of God, like that verse that talks about it doesn't say, don't you know your body's a temple of God with the exception of your penis and your vagina. No, that's included in the process. And I could go really deep, but I won't, about how that's intentionally included in the process. So I think a lack of knowledge and awareness of how we were designed is one part about it. But then the others is to say, if we're going to push for waiting to have this experience with that person that I'm going to share the rest of my life with, let's be bold about it. Let's proclaim it. Let's create a revolution about it, because this revolution doesn't just impact you and doesn't just heal what you've been through. It also impacts the generation that's going to come after you. I realized, okay, so this might sound spooky, but pacify me. That night, January 8, 2008, I was at my house by myself, and I had this dream. And in this dream, there was like this spirit in the room, in the hallway. And I felt like it was a spirit of lust. And I was mad because I felt like this was driving me to make decisions, this spirit, and I was going to confront it. I was ready to fight it. My family is just gone. They've left because of the actions by the consequences of this spirit. I was going to kick this spirit's ass. That's what I was going to do. And as I was ready to lift my fist, it went around me and it went to my son's room. And I woke up and I heard this thought that if you don't get this in check, then it's coming after your children next. Now, listen, I'm not hating. I don't want this statement to sound like I'm hating anyone that has a profession, that wants a profession to make money by going into the prostitution industry. I'm just saying, many times if a person makes that decision, it's not because they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, I just want to have sex with as many men possible and make money for it. Many times the parent is not in place to speak to, certain things responsibly for kids to make the right decisions.
Or the parent has caused the trauma that creates
or the parent has caused the trauma. Mm-hmm. And so part of this revolution is we got to get our stuff right so that we don't let it pass on. Because I can't speak to with conviction what I'm still struggling with. I can't empower you and prepare you for this part of the world if I'm being victimized and beat up and I'm a slave to this part. Right. And so, yeah.
You kind of hit the nail on the head, though. Have you heard of the ACEs test, the ACEs quizzes, acute childhood trauma scores?
No.
So, a lot of medical providers, and I work at a very big medical clinic, and we're getting trauma-informed therapy, which is essentially, there's a quiz, you can look it up online. You might want to use it with some of your clients too. It essentially gives you scores. It's like, did you see abuse? Were your parents divorced? Was there alcohol and drugs in your house? And the higher the score on that, the more likely it is that people are going to struggle with these demons of many different demons, drugs. And so what you're referring to is that thought that, our childhood traumas affect us and it affects our sexual beings as well.
Well, and generational trauma is a humongous issue, obviously. It's about so many different topics. But what I know that you speak to a faith-based practice of getting your message out, but I'm here to tell you that I think it crosses beyond that. And this, whether you are a faith-based person, a secular person, a person of science, an atheist, LGBTQ, whatever it is, this is an issue that is a human issue. And it goes way beyond anything else other than we are all doing our best to nurture and heal the little us inside. And most of us don't have that skill. And then we come to partner up with another human who also has a broken little person inside. And then you think that it's two adults coming together to try and have a relationship, but in reality, it's both of their littlest person in there. The one that has the most trauma, the one that never got the skills. That's the person that shows up in stressful situations. It's not the adult. It's the little kid in us. It's like, oh my God, I'm being triggered. I feel hurt like I did when I was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm just saying the work is great work and I'm glad you're doing it.
I appreciate that. I hate the disclaimer because I feel like sometimes our faith-based community has come off very judgmental. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's certain things that we believe in according to, what we learn from the Bible. But there's a grace that we believe that when Christ walked the earth, he walked in, and not in judgment, but he walked in love. He saw the root before he judged by the fruit. Very aware. I do agree that I'm talking about. And I don't mean fruit in like in a silly way, but I'm sensitive that there's certain communities that may be allergic to the faith-based community because of the judge. I'm sensitive to that. I'm uberly.
So unfortunately, most medical providers, just based on the fact that I just had to diagnose a 21-year-old with syphilis. And there's so many uprisings of syphilis right now that they're running out of injectable penicillin. So my only thing on that is it's great, but we cannot only teach abstinence because it's not the real world. And that's otherwise, everything you're saying around having true intimacy and connection and not just throwing your bodies to the wolves and the horrible hookup culture we're dealing with and, swiping apps and everybody just having sex because they can.
Right.
I think that most medical providers would also agree it should be more of a connected experience, but we better be teaching those poor teenagers with hormones how to not get syphilis at 21.
I get the feeling that correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking about an abstinence set where you aren't doing something until you are grounded in who you are and can bring a healthy, integrated selfhood to the relationship. Or maybe you're talking about don't have sex when you're 11. I think I agree with that. Try not to do that.
I'm talking about the abstinence, but to the point that was just made, I'm talking about the why. I think and I think one of you guys alluded to it. I don't know if it was the podcast that I referenced, but the Nancy Reagan just say no is not going to cut it, right? There's got to be more context.
And part of that context should be you should be connected. I'm sure you teach your children that, right? Like if you're going to do this someday, it's because it's supposed to be a special connected thing, not just an act of sex. So the whole picture, right?
Yeah. I remember
though, because some people, I'm sorry, it's tricky because some people though are perfectly capable of saying, I'm going to have sex. I don't want a connection. I just want to feel good. And that's okay too. The argument being, if that's what you want to do, great, be honest and open and communicative about that desire so that your partner can say, okay, thank you for respecting me enough to tell me exactly what this is to you so that I get to make an informed decision and say, that's okay with me or that's not okay with me. It's when all that happens in the cover of, night, so to speak.
Yeah, it's challenging. I don't want to open up a whole nother can of worms, is because for me, understanding the beautiful, intimate, exclusive communication of sex and certain things that I've learned about it is something that I realized whatever I was doing prior to meeting my wife, I was sabotaging that intimacy. And going back to the why, somebody, as you said, might say, well, you know what, I want to have sex just because I just wanted to do it. And you have that right. Like, I can't make you that's your right as a human to do it. I would just ask you to ask the question, why? Because there was a time if I was excited and wanted to celebrate because I just won the Super Bowl, I mean, not literally, but I wanted to have sex. But if I was really sad or depressed, to get my mind off of it, I want to have sex. Or if I'm really frustrated and I just don't have control of the situation, I just want to bang it out. And so I have all these parts of my soul that I'm not allowing myself to explore. I'm just masking it by wanting to have sex for every single reason. And I'm saying that in and of itself, to me, cheapens this communication that was intended for an exclusive purpose between a husband and a wife. And that, again, comes from a faith standpoint on that. And I don't knock what other people do. I just ask the question, why? You know?
Absolutely, because the why it could be indicative of a much larger problem. I agree with that totally. Yeah.
If I look back at my history, there was definitely a period of time where I was doing that to fill like that void of like not having enough attention from my parents when I was younger, or not like that feeling of wanting to be connected, but not knowing how to connect in a relationship type way. So sure, one night stands and having, or, sex with people that I didn't know as well when I was younger filled that void a little bit. Now that I'm older and understand that, so yes, people needing to get to their whys. But until we start teaching this stuff in school, love languages, attachment styles, connection, I mean, it has to start at like such a younger age, because you don't figure that out sometimes until you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s.
Yes. And if we as parents assume the responsibility to have these conversations, the same priority or emphasis we should have with financial literacy, that we should have with certain things that we say, a child, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. As soon as a child is able to identify, I remember my 19-year-old, when she was able to tell us that she had Eric, her brother had a penis and she had a vagina. As soon as she's able to recognize she had a vagina, then we are now able to engage in conversations about that vagina. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes we're so paralyzed by what we've been through that I feel like if I tell them, if I sit down with my 14-year-old and share what happened, then I give them license to do whatever. Well, you know what? What you also do is you warn them, because I know if I've been to a restaurant and I got sick and vomited for days by going to that restaurant, then I'm going to tell you, whatever you do, don't go to this restaurant, because you'll have the same experience. I can do the same with my experiences, and that doesn't necessarily give you license. It gives you perspective and context. And so I do agree that the schools have it would be great if they would educate in that way, but I also believe that we as parents need to take a greater responsibility in those conversations.
100%. But we're getting all philosophical picture here. Okay, say we started now with the children of today. Someday when they're parents, they would have the tools to do that. I feel like most parents don't have the tools to do that. So you have to start somewhere, like chicken or the egg. You have to start somewhere. And again, we can't control the world, but thank you for putting out this information, because it's helping. Honestly, I think you're my favorite, because you're just so open and honest about it all, that it's going to help. You will help people just by being here. For sure.
Absolutely. Eric, you are fantastic. I adore your work, and I think you're wonderful. Tell everybody how they may find you out in the world at large.
Absolutely. I am on social media platforms. Just look for Eric Kellum, EricKellum. If you're interested in the book, you can go to getsexualhealing.com, or you can order it from Amazon, or I think we have the audio book or the ebook if you go to getsexualhealing.com, I get more of the profit or it doesn't go to Amazon, but it doesn't matter. Whatever is your comfortability if you want to get the book. Also, and any of those social media channels, if you're interested in any type of coaching or counseling, hit us up. You can DM me, and we can set up a consultation for that as well.
And we will make sure we link to all of those down below.
Oh, yeah. We'll put all this stuff down below, everybody. And thank you, Eric. Thank you, Mara. Everybody be well, stay connected. And here we go. Let's just get through this life together. Let's come to the party and be present.
And it's off topic. Well, it kind of goes together. In 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about the LAT couples, the living alone together couples, which is becoming such a big movement.
Never heard of it.
There's also the walk away wife is another term for it. But essentially, people decide that they're going to live alone, but still be a committed couple.
That I'm 100%.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for personally. Us older ladies are like, yeah, I like my house, I like my life, but I want that committed relationship. So yeah, anyway, that's in 2 weeks. So Eric, you were amazing. Thank you. I love you, Susan. Everybody stay well and connected.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.